I think that folks in child welfare who have been doing differential response have really appreciated the opportunity to right-size the intervention and suspending the need to make a finding in some of those lower risk cases has improved their ability to join with the family and move towards safety. And I think the research that was included that CSU did shows that the approach is just as safe as the traditional response. So being able to right-size that intervention, I think, can reduce some of the unintended consequences that we might have also by coming in potentially more heavy-handed than we need to. I think the other thing we talked about was the prevention track, which in child welfare now has emerged in some counties. You really have 3 different tracks, allows you to serve some families who don't meet the criteria to screen in. But nationally, the definition of a differential response system means you have 2 or more tracks after the point of screening in, after it meets criteria. So we appreciate, Mindy, that initial meeting, and it seemed like the conversation was, we weren't sure that state staff had the bandwidth at this point in time to, needed to focus on rule packets, the possibility of forming another work group that did have the bandwidth and interest capacity at this point to start to lay the foundation of what would some of that look like, starting to brainstorm a track assignment guide, because that's where the rubber really meets the road. In your assignment, which kinds of cases. It seems like the self-neglect cases are the obvious ones, and there's some examples nationally of other folks who are doing that. So we're, I guess, looking maybe for the approval or sanction recommendation of putting together a work group and digging in.
We recognize this is not something that, I couldn't tell you, I was a caseworker at the time when we implemented differential response on the child welfare side of things, and I can tell you this, sort of the bigger picture would be that this would be a change over a period of time, right? Because there's lots of things that have to occur, and there's financial impact, there's lots of things, and so I think part of this work group would be to look at things like that, what are the have-tos, and maybe the things that we have to do right now, and I know that there would be some statute change and just lots of things, but I think kind of the smaller picture would be to in this, where we're at right now, is this something that, could we take a look at those pieces within this work group and figure out what exactly are all of those pieces, and at some point, could we potentially look at piloting it on a smaller level before then rolling it out, because it would include lots of changes and potential changes in caps. So I think to say that it's, we know that this is much larger than what obviously we're presenting today, and it would of course be something over a period of time. And
is there any philosophical opposition at the state level that you know of to the exploration of it?
This is Eric. I would say that, and this is probably speaking more personally than for the department. I was at the meeting that we had earlier, and I think that that there were some good examples offered of some current rules that are constraining new practice in ways that may not be good. So, for example, the fact that you have to call them, the fact that you should show up unannounced to talk to the client, I can understand why that's an issue. But there are others where when we talked about the meeting, I was less sure, I'm not sure if I'm following the logic. For example, one of them was, and we talked about this today, about the findings, that it feels maybe heavy-handed that you have to come up with the findings in these cases. And what I thought at the time was, well, I mean, I understand the idea about the language, but it seems to me that if you were having to make a decision about getting involved with a family, with another adult, that at some point you need to be able to document a conclusion in the case files that says, this is why we're getting involved with this person. And while you might not want to say that, use the word finding with the client, you already have this infrastructure that where you can document that work and say, this is why you're getting involved. Another example that was brought up was had to do with the investigations and having to ask all these questions to establish, to substantiate the finding. And I was also thinking there that that it seems, again, if you're trying to determine if there's a need for the county to get involved, you got to ask a bunch of questions to figure out if there really is risk there and what that looks like and so forth. And so it's unclear to me how under the differential response that would be different. And so I think that the department doesn't have a philosophical objection to starting a task group. I think that we have, as was mentioned, we definitely don't have bandwidth issue, availability in calendar year 18 to talk about it. I think there's also, just in terms of like changing statute, but obviously we're having a gubernatorial election this year, and so there's going to be a new administration, and who wins, who knows what
All bets are off.
all bets are off.